Hey man, can you hear me?
Hey, can you? Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that.
First of all, thanks a lot for being here. That's a big
Yeah,
pleasure for me.
yeah, my pleasure, man.
So, how's quarantine going so far for you? You're in Dallas, right?
Yeah, I'm in Dallas. Um, it's all right, really. I mean, the studios for the most part is shut down. I'm doing a little bit of mixing and mastering for some people that send me stuff, but for the most part, spending lots of time at home. So, but which has its good and bad things. I mean, not making any money, but it's also kind of nice to have some free time.
So, I'm gonna start this interview with curiosity.
Okay.
I saw in your personal Facebook profile that you studied jazz in the University of North Texas. How was that? Have you graduated?
I did, yeah. That was what my degree was in. Um, Yeah, and University of North Texas is a world-renowned music school, so it's a really good school.
Cool. And how was your musical education?
Well, I grew up, my entire family's musicians, so it was my both my parents are musicians, and they're both classical musicians, and it was just that was my entire world growing up, so that was kind of all I knew. So I went to college to get a music degree, got a performance degree in jazz, and it's just that's kind of been my entire life has been music. So,
That's nice. And at which point you decided to switch to heavy doom noisy music from jazz to stoner?
well, yeah, it's funny because going to college, my focus was to be a jazz musician, and my plan was to leave North Texas and go to New York and try and be a jazz musician. But as I was in college, I'd met a lot of different kinds of people and was exposed to lots of different kinds of music and like things I hadn't really listened to before. And that's kind of where I first started hearing heavier music from some friends that I hung out with. This was in the late '80s, and so I had some friends that turned me on to a lot of like '80s hardcore and punk, and then which led me to discovering bands like Slayer and Metallica, and then and then a little bit later, like Helmet was a big influence, and things like that. And the intensity of the heavy music was one of the things that really drew me in. And it's the same with jazz. It's to me, it's like it's very emotional and about intense and being very much in the moment. And that was so to me, it didn't seem like it wasn't a big jump for me to go from liking jazz and liking heavier music. I kind of wanted to incorporate aspects of both. And it was like late '90s when I discovered Fu Manchu and Caius and Sleep and things like that, and that really became something I really was drawn to, mostly because of the blues foundation of it melodically, which was something I've always been drawn to my entire life, or some music that's essentially based in a blues melodic world. And so the stoner doom thing was kind of the best of all worlds to me that I really liked.
How is musical scene in Dallas, and do you believe it's influenced you as a musician in some way?
I think it has. It's changed a lot over the years. Like when I first got here in the late '80s, the music scene in Dallas was really really good and rich and vibrant, and it's sort of become real sort of trend oriented in the last I don't know couple decades, which isn't so great for what we're doing. And the scene for our like support for our kind of music is not as good here as it is in other places, unfortunately. I mean, there's a small scene that is really, really great, and like, there's a handful of really good bands locally doing similar stuff to us, our stoner kind of stuff. But it's just not the support isn't quite as good as one would hope. But Texas in general is actually a really, really great scene. Especially Austin and I think Houston and San Antonio also have pretty strong scenes, but Dallas is just kind of a weird, fickle town. Fort Worth actually, which is a big city right next to us. Yes, for whatever reason, seems a little bit more supportive of heavy music than Dallas is.
And at which point you started Wolfat? I believe you started the band in 2003, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we started first jamming and it was like 2003, I think. And me and Tim and Michael, it was really very casual, very part-time thing early on. Like we would jam every couple of months, maybe, and it slowly kind of turned into something more serious. But like that first album, The Gathering Dark, that was done over the course of a few years of, like I think we did 4 songs the first time we went in the studio, and then it was just like piecemeal after that. Like as we'd write new songs, we'd record them, and and then especially like when we put that album out and started getting some good reviews and things like that, that's when we started getting more serious in terms of playing more and trying to get more gigs and stuff. But it was very, very part-time at first, and it's kind of built over the years into what it is.
At which point you guys decided to create the Wolf app? I know you guys have a festival. How did you guys come up with the idea, and how was that to make this work?
You mean the Woe Fest?
Yeah, the Wolf Fest.
Yeah, that actually wasn't our idea. That was Anthony Blaney in Australia. We went to Australia a year ago in June, and Anthony had the idea of like, hey, let's make a festival. And so he essentially invented that, and we played it with as part of our tour, and had a great time down there. And he's decided to keep it going every year. So that actually, even though it has our name, is actually Anthony Blaney's. Anthony's with Your Mate Bookings, and he does brings a lot of bands down to Australia to do tours. Great guy. But yeah, that's his thing. So
yeah, got it. Cool, interesting. All right. I read you guys produce your music and albums at home since you have a studio. I believe you're a music engineer too. Are you guys working on a new album right now?
We are, yeah. We actually have 5 songs in various stages of being recorded. Some are closer to being finished than others, and then I would guess we're probably going to have maybe 2 more songs on top of that, because I'm working on another song right now that I'm still writing, and a second song that has sort of been, in the back of my mind for a while, that was kind of based on some jams that we did in the studio a while back. So probably we'll end up with like 7 songs, which, for us is quite a bit, because the songs are generally pretty long. So the plan, the hope right now is to maybe over the summer we'll be able to finish up all the recording, and I would hope that it will be released maybe early 2021.
Cool. I expect we're no longer in quarantine when that comes.
Yeah. Let's hope not.
Yeah, that's 6. Anyway, I got a kind of a cliche question, but usually has like some funny answers. So usually do that. What's the crazy story you guys lived on tour? Doesn't need to be only one, of course. Like a very funny one that you think it's worth to mention.
We don't. We're pretty chilled band, so we don't have a lot of crazy stuff that happens to us. Let me think for a second. That's a tough question, actually. We do have a guy that he's a big fan of ours that we've known since we played. Was it Doom in June? I think in like 2011, which was in Las Vegas, and we actually met him there for the first time. And then since then, he lives in California, and he has come to see us like all over the world, basically. But there was one time we played a festival, and he decided he was going to surprise us, and so he flew in from California and showed up in a costume. Basically, he looked like Brant Bjork, and this is a guy who has his hair's completely shaved almost. So he showed up with fake mustache, big wig on, sunglasses, and thought he would trick us, and like we wouldn't realize it was him, but we all, of course, immediately. But that's not like I said, we don't have a lot of crazy stuff that happens to us because we're all pretty chill guys. So the first time that we were in Paris, we played at this place called Le Combustible, which was this cool little club that you would get really packed and just super crowded and really, really hot, which made the Le Combustible name seem very appropriate. But anyway, so it was on the ground floor of this building that had apartments up above it. And at the end of the gig, this was like a really cool gig because it was us and Winch Mountain, which was awesome. But so at the end of the gig, we're going to load out, and there's like an awning in front of the club, and so we're starting to load out. And so apparently there's this old lady that lived up above the club, and she hated that there was bands playing late down below her. It was really loud, I guess. So this particular night, she decided that she'd had enough, and so she started throwing glass jars full of paint and paint thinner out her window down at us as we're trying to load our gear. And so it's like, jars of paint shattering on the ground, and I remember Tim got like a shard of glass in his leg, and it was crazy. So we're running, trying to load as quickly as we can and get out of here without getting hit with a jar of paint thinner. It was crazy.
Was that like the middle of the show?
No, this was at the end of the show, at the end of the night. So it was like 2 a.m. or something. We're loading out. We're all tired. We've had a little bit to drink. And
did you guys use any equipment on that?
No, fortunately, but what's my road case for my guitar still has like paint on it from that from an exploding jar of paint that landed right next to it. Yeah, it was. I mean, it all worked out fine. But yeah, she's like screaming at us in French, and it was crazy.
Well, why the hell she lives over a club?
Yeah,
makes sense.
I know. I mean, I've heard that club has been shut down, so it's no longer the thing. But I know that people in Paris probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So
yeah, but she's had something to do with its clothing.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I know you guys have traveled around the world already. Which countries you guys have ever played?
We've been to Europe a number of times, all over Europe. The usual: France, Germany, Switzerland, Spain. Norway, Denmark, UK, Poland, and then we went to Australia, like I said, last year. Australia, New Zealand, which was the first time I'd ever been there, it was amazing. And then, of course, in the United States, we played Canada. We've never been to South America, though. Hopefully that.
Yeah, we missed that, but hopefully we'll have soon after Corona.
Yeah.
How's that going to New Zealand? Do they have like a stoner rock scene, or never heard of any band there?
Yeah, they definitely do. Yeah, we played in Auckland and Wellington, and both gigs were great. And it's just, they definitely have a scene there. And there's Valhalla Booking, who did the booking for us. He brings the bands down there, and does a really good job of promoting the shows and getting crowds out, and it's great.
I remember seeing the art from the New Zealand was like a kiwi, the bird. Do you guys have someone specifically that do the arts for you, or do there many artists? Because it does seem to have a pattern,
Well, we've worked with a number of different artists. All of artists that we've worked with are great, and like David Paul Seymour did the artwork for Midnight Cometh and also the live album. He's done a few T-shirt designs for us. His artwork is amazing, and if you've seen a lot of his art out around there, and also. Alexander von Wieding from Germany. He did the first 5 album covers. He did a bunch of stuff for us, and he's great. And we like to kind of change the flavor up every now and then, so things that are a little bit different. So we're not sure who's doing the artwork for the next one, but I've got somebody in mind, but we haven't fully decided yet. But we like to work with various different people, and we've had various people like Stephen Yoyada did some great T-shirt designs for us in the last Australian tour poster, and his work is amazing too. So
cool. All right, I believe that's it. Do you want to send a message to the people that will be watching that in quarantine? That has been waiting news for an old fat for a long time, but since it's out, stop it.
Yeah, well, wear your masks, people.
Yeah, the right way, actually.
Yeah, and be positive, and we'll get through this, and hopefully we'll have a low fat record to look forward to on the other side. So,
can they expect any kind of live or something popping up from low fat during quarantine?
Actually, I don't know. Zach mentioned that the other day, so we are thinking about doing that, because we rehearse at the studio, so it would be a good place for that. So we might actually do that. Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah, that's exciting. Looking forward for that. Man, thanks a lot for your time. Pretty honored that you accepted this. I'm coming back with the channel right now. I'm planning to invite some other stoner rock bands in the future. So thanks very much for being here. I'm a big fan of Full Fat.
Cool, thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for asking me.